Hello and welcome to Baseplate Reviews. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Legend of Zelda set, the Great Deku Tree 2-in-1, which can either be built into the Breath of the Wild Great Deku Tree, which we can see on the front of the box here, or the Ocarina of Time Great Deku Tree, which is there on the back of the box, of course the classic N64 game, Ocarina of Time. So this is a pretty expensive set, goes for $300 US, 390 Canadian dollars, which is what I picked up in, or £260. Actually, at the exchange rates as it stands, the Canadian price is the best. The UK price is pretty pricey. I make $300 US, should be about £230. So pretty pricey in the UK, Europe there. But yeah, one of those things. Only 2,500 pieces. So 2,500 for $300 US. Definitely not there on a parts to price ratio. But obviously a very desirable set in terms of the minifigures that we've got and also just the theme in general. I think a lot of people have been crying out for Legend of Zelda once LEGO started working with the Nintendo group. But anyway, I'm going to put the camera down and we'll take a closer look at this. So I did pick this up on release day back on 1st September, but it's about a week later now and I'm only getting around to building it. So one of the things to note is that this did actually come in its own box separate to this. So this was inside another cardboard box. So it should have all been protected. But if we spin this around, my box is actually scuffed up a reasonable amount here. It's not ideal for what is a premium product, but I think the packaging's pretty nice. It's gone for that kind of black background, for adults if you like stuff. And it does show off what's in the set pretty well. So shows some of the things which are inside the actual tree, like the Skulltula just here. We've got the Deku Baba just there, and if we look at the top of the box, it does show off the 4 minifigs that we get. So it's 3 of Link, so we're getting the Ocarina of Time young and old Link, or young Link and just Link. Then we're getting the Breath of the Wild Link just there, and Princess Zelda as well. I think that the 2 there are pretty exceptional. But let's get it open and see what we're working with. So you can see we've got a whole heap of bags here, but only one booklet, one very heavy booklet, and I believe this is because you actually build both the Breath of the Wild and the Ocarina of Time tree in pretty much the same way to a certain point, and then you can choose to go on and either make it the Ocarina of Time or the Breath of the Wild tree. So I believe that happens about halfway through the book. I will double check. Yeah, so just here. So if I want to go on to keep making this the Breath of the Wild tree, I'll just carry on. Otherwise I'm going to skip to page 297 and crack on like that. Like I say, lots and lots of bags. I think we've got 23 or so of them in total. Some of them smaller than others. Obviously, lots of nice kind of plant elements and stuff like that. So if this was at a cheaper price, it would actually work pretty well as a parts pack, I think. But I'm going to get on with building it. I'll probably come back to you when I've got to that middle bit where I decide either to make it Breath of the Wild or Ocarina of Time. Okay, so I'm halfway through the build at the point where I need to decide whether to make the Ocarina of Time. I'll move on to page 297 as you can see there, or carry on making the Deku Tree from Breath of the Wild. Now I think I'm actually going to carry on and make the Ocarina of Time one, just because actually I think in the end I am going to make the one which is the Breath of the Wild. This is the Ocarina of Time one. Unfortunately, I do think that the Breath of the Wild set is just an outright better one. And one of the reasons for that is that with the Ocarina of Time bit, you actually just do not attach this bit at the front with the Master Sword. And so it's actually quite a bit smaller if it's the Ocarina of Time set. What you have also got, and we can see it just over here, is there's just a separate build, and this is separate to either of the final builds, which is Link's kind of little house from Ocarina of Time. We've also got all the minifigs down there. But like I say, I think I'll make the Ocarina of Time one first, then talk to you about that, and then I will go on and take it apart and move on to Breath of the Wild set just there. It's just a bit bigger, just a bit more impressive. And I think unfortunately, from the pictures I've seen of it, at least on the box and in store, etc., that's just an outright better kind of finished build, but we'll see when we get to it. Okay, so I first built the Great Deku Tree from Ocarina of Time, and that's here complete, along with its little side build of young Link's house that was in Kokiri Forest. But the first bit that I wanted to just show you was how much is actually left over from building this first rather than the Breath of the Wild version. So we've actually got 5 sealed bags there. So 11, 12, 15, 18 and 19. We can see all the kind of pink pieces that would go towards the foliage of the Breath of the Wild Deku Tree just there. Plus we've got the usual spare parts. So a couple of those are interesting. We've got a spare sword and a spare slingshot, so that's nice. But yeah, this does show just how much this is kind of the lesser build of the two, how much is actually left over, and that's not even mentioning this part which you actually have to build before you decide whether to go on to build either the Ocarina of Time or Breath of the Wild tree. So we've still got that to add to our Breath of the Wild tree. I'm sure there will be pieces left over, but just nowhere near as much as this. I've actually unfortunately had the experience of just building the Creator 3-in-1 modern house, and both the kind of B and C builds there used not a lot of the total pieces, left over a lot of pieces, more than I've seen in Creator 3-in-1. So pity we've got that with this, but we'll take a proper close look at the Deku Tree here. So just to be clear, I think that if there were no other version of this set, if this was the only one, there wasn't an alternate build, I think from a visual perspective this is just really spectacular. Great detailing. Obviously the minifigs are fantastic, we'll go into those in more detail. I actually do like the side build of young Link's house there, because this is the version of the Deku Tree when Link is older, because we've got the Deku Tree sprout here. Nice print piece, we'll look at that a bit closer in a second. But just the overall feel of this, the overall size of it, is pretty damn good. I haven't got a lot to complain about. If we spin it around, we can see that it isn't an enclosed build, but that doesn't mean it's not a great display piece. And this actually has the kind of 2 mechanisms that are on this version of the build. So the one that we can see here, we've got a kind of cog just there, and that is going to, we do that, we can see the skull tuller enemy just dropping down, and that's easy to wind back up. We just do that, put it back into place. And the other mechanism, if I spin this around, so I can do this from here, I'm pretty sure, just allows us to show the Great Deku Tree's mouth opening, and then Link can enter the dungeon, which is the Deku Tree dungeon in Ocarina of Time. So like I say, nothing to complain about in terms of just what it looks like. Forget about value if we didn't have another set. So it is really nice. But we'll look at some of the kind of close-up bits of it, and I can show you just how kind of special some of it is. So I think the first thing we need to give the set credit for, and this is both builds, are that we don't actually have any stickers in the set. So this is priced at a premium kind of rate, but no stickers. And we've even seen some very expensive, like kind of high-end sets use stickers. Certainly all of the Harry Potter kind of collector's edition sets, and also even things like Lego Rivendell and Barad-dûr from the Lord of the Rings range. So the first really nice print that we've got is on the Deku sapling, and that's actually a really good representation of the Deku sapling in the game. The next one, which could really easily have been a sticker, is the Gossip Stone that we've got there. And as we're around this side of the tree, I can show you the first kind of secret compartment, and this actually has a bow in it, just a standard bow that we've seen lots of times, but it's there on the kind of fixing, and behind it we've got a translucent red, blue and yellow studs, and that actually represents the types of arrows that Link can fire in the game, so the fire, ice and light arrows. If we then move around to the other side, we've got another Deku Baba enemy just there, but we should still be able to pop this off, and there we can see a kind of stone which is showing one of the songs, the notes that you have to play to be able to use the ocarina to cause some effects in the game. So yeah, a couple of nice touches there. In terms of the actual style of the tree, and I say there's no problems, I have just knocked some of the flowers off the side there. But in terms of the stylings of the tree, some really clever use of a couple of sailor hats for the eyes just there. And like I say, a really good representation of the game. You know, some pretty old game now, so some low resolution images that they'd have been working with. And just the base all around looks really, really nice. We spin it round to the back, which we already saw, but we'll have a bit of a closer look. There's nothing at the top here. This is just bits to hold up the kind of foliage. We've got that mechanism for the Skulltula plus the webbing. But down in here, we've got obviously the mechanism which opens and closes the entrance to the dungeon. But we've also got a couple of vines hanging down. And just to the side of that, we've actually got a torch. Now in the game, these are the type of things that you would set fire to, and then it would burn away stuff like the vines to reveal an entrance. We've also got a little treasure chest just to the side there. And this is actually what young Link finds in the game. So in there, we do have the slingshot, which is one of his first weapons he gets other than the Kokiri sword. So yeah, it's really nice. Like I say, some really nice styling, shaping at the sides. And I think overall, yeah, not a lot to complain about. In terms of these compartments that come apart, really easy to slot back into position. There's no kind of wiggling and jiggling them. So it works as a display set, obviously primarily, but a little bit of play, a little bit of kind of hidden features in there, and not bad at all. The other bit that we've got with this is actually Link's treehouse that he has when he's a youngster, and the reason that I said I like this is because actually this version where we've already got the sapling, it's definitely from when Link's older. So it's nice for, if we're going to have the young Link minifig, for him to have his own kind of bit. And this is actually super accurate to the game. We've got Navi, the fairy, just there. And you've also got a few extra pieces to, so instead of it just being the blue one, you can switch over to a yellow one, which is what you use when you interact with people in the game to talk to them. And there's also a red one, kind of reddy pinky colour, which is used for when Navi alerts you to stuff. In terms of this, like I say, super accurate to the game. Surprisingly so. And the hidden bit that we've got in here is just a little crate. So I pull that out. I couldn't get the crate out there super easily one-handed, so I just stopped for a second to pull that out. So the first thing we've got in here is probably the best thing, and that is the incredibly printed, super accurate Hylian shield, which adult Link uses a bit big for young Link, but that's just fantastic. Just really, really good. The other things in here are all great nods to the games. So if I get the kind of loose things out to start with, we've got a bomb just here. So Link uses those to throw and open up new entrances and stuff like that. And then we've got another couple of loose pieces. First one, super important right from the first Zelda games. We get the compass, which you tend to find a compass for each dungeon. It reveals the kind of layout of the dungeon, where the boss is. The next bit, probably the next best bit after that Hylian shield, is this is actually the hook shot, and you can put this into Link's hand, so really useful item in the game. And then we've got a couple of potions. So the first one is the health potion, the heart potion. really nice. You build all of these with various parts, they're not moulds or anything like that. And then finally we've got this little magic potion just there. There's not really anywhere to put these other than in the back of young Link's house. I mean, you can put them into Link's hand and stuff as well, but you certainly haven't got enough kind of minifigs to use them all at once, but all really nice to get. And like I say, a nice little extra there. We've also got the sign, which is in the Hylian language. I think it's Hylian language even when it's in Kokiri Forest there. It's certainly the same style as the signs all throughout the game. So yeah, really, really nice. I don't think this is actually going to be too much of a problem for me to get this back down to the kind of base version ready to turn into Breath of the Wild. But that's because I've built it today and I'm going to get it stripped back straight away. I think it would be tricky if you came to switching it over to the other version, opening all those new bags up, trying to work out what you needed to take apart from this. If you were doing it months or even years later. So yeah, I'm glad I've built this version straight away, and then I'm going to get it to the kind of prime version following that. Just before we move on to that kind of prime build, I just wanted to talk about the booklet a tiny bit. So there's some really nice elements to this, shows some of the lore, shows some of the things that you're building in terms of like the flowers, also describing the weapons, etc. But did find a few problems with print quality. Colours became very muddy, and I think you can see it in the pictures here. One side, these are the same colours in Lego, but one side showing the reddish brown, very red, the other not at all. Just something which Lego struggled a bit with for a while and should really be stepped up. And I'm done building the Breath of the Wild version of the Great Deku Tree, and I think it really is the superior version. We'll take a closer look at it in a moment, but just before that, just wanted to show you what we're left over with from the build. So left over from what we used for the Ocarina of Time set. So we've got a load of just loose pieces, absolutely, but nothing too crazy. And we do have, of course, the official kind of build, the Link's house, young Link's house. We are left over with quite a few actual built pieces, so very pleased that we didn't have to get rid of the Skulltula or the Deku sapling. We've also got the enemies, the Deku Babas there. The couple of plinths that were in the secret compartments for the Deku Tree. And we've also got the Gossip Stone just down there, as well as a treasure chest and a few bits of foliage. In terms of kind of other nice pieces left over, we do have the spider web, the sword and the slingshot, plus a couple of the Deku faces or masks. But yeah, nothing too crazy, not like when we built the Ocarina of Time version and we were left over with far too much. But let's get into looking at this a bit closer. So like I said, I think this version is inarguably the definitive version, even though with this front section you could have had this apart if you'd built the Ocarina of Time tree. You wouldn't actually have all of this foliage here, so that would actually be used on the tree itself. It would still make a nice little diorama, but yeah, definitely better as part of the set. And starting off there, we do get the, because I've moved it, unfortunately the Master Sword's not right in the centre, but we've got the Master Sword in its plinth, which is in the shape of the Triforce just there. And you might be able to see this is right throughout the set. We've got lots of the kind of mushrooms and things like that, which Link uses to cook up his delicious or not so delicious meals in Breath of the Wild. If I move that over to the side, we get a better look here. We've got a small Korok just down to the side there. Again, just the detailing, the shaping of the Deku trees kind of roots is pretty fantastic. We also have the very large Deku just there, so that's Hestu, and I think some of you may have seen that actually his maracas, which should have Deku seeds inside, hopefully you can hear that, but they do actually shake, so that's pretty nice. There's a couple of places where you can place him. In general, you just stay stuck to the base there, and then we've got a place to stick him pretty easily, but you could show him separately again. And in terms of the foliage, I think that the colour choices are just perfect. Now we do have a bit of a movement feature, not as pronounced as the Ocarina of Time one with the big opening door or the Skulltula dropping down at the back, but there is just a lever here, and if I move that we can show the Deku tree kind of talking. His mouth opens and his eyebrows go back and forth. So nice little feature. I don't think you'll be using it too much. This is really a display set. But if we move it round to the side, I'll just put the front part back on and you can see just how large this is in terms of the space it's going to take up. So from the back to the front there, just about 13.5, 14 inches. So it's pretty substantial. Does mean it's going to be tricky in terms of shelf space sometimes. If we move this around just here, we get the back. So in the base of the tree, we've got a bed for Link, a little cooking station, and a few more shrooms just there. We also have another of the Koroks, which is great. I think the designs of the kind of prints on these tiles is really, really nice. So yeah, nice little kind of area for Link to rest and cook up. And then if we move up the tree, nothing here, which is where the function for the Skulltula was, but this is where the lever to move the mouth and eyebrows are. But as we move up, we do have another little section in the tree just here, and yet another Korok. And we also actually have a fairy here as well. So just there. So we've got a couple of those fairy prints. So one for each of the sets. You actually have the other fairy, so the named fairy Navi, just down there in the young Link's house. But yeah, lots and lots of nice detailing. So the last bits in terms of the kind of nice detailing, of course, are the hidden panels that we've got, but in this version, a bit trickier to access. We need to move the trees out of the way. And on this side, once I remove the panel, should be able to see we've got the Breath of the Wild bombs. So we've got the rounded one or the square one just there. I think that's, yeah, nice enough. Nothing too special. I think they've used the squared piece for the Tesseract before in Marvel sets. And in this side, I don't need to move a tree out the way, but it's just a little trickier to access. And in here we've got the Sheikah Slate or Shaker Slate. The pity with having this hidden in there is that means that it's not in Princess Zelda's hand anymore. We don't get two of them in the set, which would have been nice. So we could have had one hidden away there and then one on display. But, you know, you can't have it all. But like I say, even from the back, I mean, obviously it's not displayable just there, but from the sides and in terms of the foliage and through the Deku tree kind of opening, still looks really good. Yeah, very impressive set overall.
As well designed as the set is overall, I think that where this takes it to another level is with the minifig design. Just exceptional printing on all four. Also those hairpiece moulds, those pointy Hylian ears are great too. I think very accurate to the games in terms of the green tunic for Link from Ocarina of Time, and then the kind of blue colours for Link and Zelda for Breath of the Wild. Also what we've got here are some great accessories. The Master Sword is just perfect. Also that Hylian shield, I already mentioned it before. And I don't have it in the pictures here, but the Ocarina of Time is great too. Some really desirable things and very easy to switch up between the characters. The only thing I'd say is maybe a slight drawback is that Link's face, his primary one, is the same between all three of his minifigs.
If you did choose to just build this as the Deku tree from Ocarina of Time, this is actually how the booklet suggests to display it. So we've got obviously the main build just here, and of course young Link's treehouse or house just there. But if you only displayed those, you would be left over with this piece, because you do build it before you go on to choose which one to build. So you'd be left with this quite substantial little diorama there with Link and Zelda, and also Hestu, the great big Korok, just there. And this is how it's suggested to present it. I don't think that really works, because this is Breath of the Wild and this is Ocarina of Time. So move that out of the way. I think it makes more sense that it's presented like that, and you could maybe present this completely separately by itself. I think it's a bit of a waste. I think that we've seen that, you know, the Prime version where this is on the front there and it's the Breath of the Wild version is the way to go. In terms of overall thoughts then, and it's a tricky one because obviously this is expensive, $300 US, but in terms of the execution of it, certainly this version, the Breath of the Wild version, the minifigs, everything like that, I think it's one of the most displayable models you can possibly get. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Now, just in comparison, I've got beside it one that's got somewhat similar kind of colour design with the greens and the pink and white flowers there. And this is the Natural History Museum, the modular for this year. It's on Mills plates, so you know, it's a bit bigger, a bit bulkier than it would be otherwise, but exactly the same price. Now I think we can see that this definitely, there's more stuff there for certain. Apologies, some of the minifigs, certainly Venom on top of there, isn't supposed to be with the set, but this has been taken out of my city. And yeah, in terms of that just outright amount of stuff, of course, I'm not sure this really matches up, but I just think in terms of like how striking it is, the display value of it, it's really, really high. I think if you're a big Zelda fan, then it's a tough one to miss out on. Maybe try and get it when there's double points available or some amazing GWPs. But I do think there's a bit more value than originally seems the case. So all of these pieces, you know, you don't, if you make the Ocarina of Time version first, you do get to keep all of those. You don't have to break them apart to make the Breath of the Wild version. And I think there's definitely some ability to make your own kind of dioramas with the minifigs there. I'm really excited actually to see what we have got coming up with the Legend of Zelda theme. And when I filled in the kind of survey about the set to say how pleased I was with it, I did ask what things I'd like to see in the future, so might do a little video about that. But yeah, let me know what you think of the set. Do you think it's worth $300 US? I think it's really pricey in the UK at £260. But is it just that desirable a set? It's definitely a tough set to just unequivocally recommend, but I think if you're a big Zelda fan, then might be one that you want to save up for, maybe get when it's on double points or there's some amazing gifts with purchase, some great deals like that on lego.com or in store. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below, if you're planning on picking it up or you just can't quite justify the price. And yeah, if you like the video, please do leave a like and subscribe if you're not already and you've enjoyed this. We'll be having a bit more content coming up. Maybe I'll make some dioramas or something myself with those leftover pieces. But as ever, I'll leave you there and say, be good.